You're listening to the Galaxy Poet Podcast, a new digital platform centered around art, the creative process, and creative solutions to problems facing our world. I am your host, Jordan Ferreira. Let's begin. Welcome to episode 2 of the Galaxy Poet Podcast. I am incredibly excited about the conversation that is coming. The guest today is one of the most ferociously talented actors of his generation. He has starred in critically acclaimed films such as Fantastic Beasts, The Crimes of Grindelwald, El Topo, Sangre, and recently The Dance of Reality and Endless Poetry, which, in my opinion, are some of the finest contributions to film that I've ever seen. I'd like to welcome Brontis Jodorowsky. I just want to say thank you for doing this. I greatly appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So the first thing I wanted to ask you about is, having revisited your work for this conversation, The Dance of Reality struck me so incredibly hard. Like, it was such an incredibly emotional, visceral experience. And I wanted to ask you, knowing what I know about the dynamic of you starring as your grandfather, essentially, being directed by your father, what was that experience like? Because that sounds confounding and magical, but also confusing. And like, what was that like for you?
It was not confusing at all. When my father proposed me to do this part, right, he told me, prepare yourself well, you're going to play your grandfather. I answered to him, no, I'm not going to play my grandfather. I'm going to play the character in the script. This Dance of Reality wasn't the first time we worked together. I started my career as an actor when I was 6 years and a half in El Topo, one of his movies too. And from there on, well, I made my own career as an actor, working with other people as a child, other movies, and later on as a theater actor for a long time in France. And before we do Dance of Reality, we had done already 3 theater plays together, right? And I appeared in the Holy Mountain. I appeared in Sangre, but those was just little, just here there. Let's do something together. But we made 3 theater plays that were quite a big success, including The Gorilla, which was an adapted from Kafka novel. So we knew each other very well in the process of work, even if in theater and in cinema is not the same thing. But when I told him I'm going to play the character in the script, I was saying that memory is a fiction in a way. So, and since I didn't knew my grandfather because of that terrible relationship they had, as you can see in the movie, my grandfather was a very severe kind of father, which was, I suppose, like fathers were in those days in those regions. I had no connection with him, so I couldn't make some sort of actor studio work, like really becoming someone else or becoming him in a realistic mode. Especially that the movie is not realistic in its treatment. So, memory being a fiction, I said I'm going to take your fiction. I'm going to take the way you see your father, the way you are creating this character for your movie, and from there on I will read the script, base my acting on what's written on the script, and so that's how it was. That's why I wasn't confused, because I had a basic material that I read. I learned to read in theater. As a theater actor, you need to know how to read a play and to spot all the indications that a good author puts in the text, in your lines, and on the other characters' lines when they talk about you. So that's what I did. I based myself completely in this script. And my work was mostly trying to understand the style of the movie. Very quickly on the first days of the shooting, very quickly understood that it wasn't going to be a normal movie treatment. That my father told me on the first days of the set, this is going to be operatic, this is theatrical. So I mainly base my acting on one specific line that's towards the end of the movie when the wife of Jaime, the character I'm playing, so my grandmother, fictional grandmother, tells him, "You've spent your life disguised as a tyrant." So I understood that on the first part of the movie, at least, this man was putting an act, right? So I had to be me as an actor playing a man who is playing a character in his own life, this domestic tyrant, right? So mostly what I really did as an actor, as my work was to, as long as the character was evolving in the movie, was changing, I tried to change in a very subtle way my acting, my style, my way of acting the character, so that we could have this feeling of this character taking away a character he was playing. I don't know if I'm clear. This is this
Yeah,
is a actor's talk, right?
I
But
think it's
so I wasn't
fascinating.
confused, and we worked really in very strong harmony. So what can be disturbing or question, people can question themselves of yourself, Jordan. You can, ask yourself how did this function? You know, the father directing the son who plays his father's father.
Yeah,
Like what Freud is going to say about all that, right?
exactly,
Or
exactly.
Jung. But in
Yeah,
the same time, while you're in the process of making a movie or filming a movie, that involves a lot of people, that involves a long process that lasts 2 months, with we're shooting 1 minute a day when it's a good day. And you can't be in psychological issues with your father or with the director or whatever. It's every minute costs money. The budget was limited. We have to be very, very effective. Each one was required to do his job and do it well. So all the psychological aspect of it that could have had some impact in our family story wasn't there. There's no time for that. You have to do your job. You have to tell the story. You have to understand the director's vision, adapt your acting to it. And we only received this emotional, psychological impact once the movie was screened in public in Cannes in the director's fortnight in 2013, I think it was.
yeah.
And
Wow.
that's when, once the movie doesn't belongs to the creative team anymore, it ships to the world, belongs to the audience, belongs to each person who receives the movie, and each person will receive it differently. Especially a movie that refers to family relationships. Everybody will project his own
Yeah,
story in it.
yeah.
So that's when the psychological impact or emotional impact for us was there.
Wow.
I won't describe which was it because it's a private thing, it's a family
Of
thing,
course.
right?
Yeah.
But not during the process. You can't be there because if
Sure.
you're in the psychological thing during the process, you don't allow the process to move forward.
Sure. Well, that's incredibly beautiful, and it just seems like it would be such a cathartic release of whatever maybe excess baggage emotionally that might be there. I could imagine for your father, the wonderful Alejandro Jodorowsky, to see this film and these characters and to have his son play his father and kind of look at him with a different perspective. I mean, I can't even imagine how incredibly profound that was. I wanted to
Yeah,
ask you,
well,
yeah,
we were working together we had done 3 theater plays together. So
of course,
before that, so it's not that um, he he wanted to work to play his father with someone who would be close enough to his universe who will understand it clearly enough.
yeah,
So obviously there was some sort of um, experiment of uh, what he would call psychomagic, doing that with his son. But he gave me the part, which was the part who was carrying the movie,
yes.
not because I was his son. His son. It's because he thought I was the actor who could carry the movie and who could understand his vision.
And I mean this sincerely. I don't think there's any other actor working that could have done what you did because not only are you his son, that performance to me is it reminds me of God, maybe Brando in Last Tango in Paris, or it reminds me of Orson Welles, or it like to
My
me
God.
to me, this is like to having a chance to speak to you is legitimately every bit as exciting as having a chance to
You,
speak to Orson.
you're very kind. You're very generous. Thank you.
I mean it sincerely. I wanted to ask you then, kind of springboarding off of that concept of, how the film in a way deals with reimagining or repurposing memory to sort of to your benefit, right? To sort of reimagine the story as a surreal autobiography and use it as an outlet for maybe viewing people in your life that perhaps caused harm to you that you're trying to understand, you're trying to empathize. It seems like that's what Alejandro Jodorowsky, your father, the amazing filmmaker, was doing in some ways. And please correct me if I'm wrong. But it seems like in the same way where it would seem to me that he views you differently now. And I've seen this wonderful clip of both of you kind of presenting the film to an audience in Taiwan, where you speak about how, or he speaks about how this generational kind of bond is sort of, or this lineage is sort of broken, and he understands like family on this really deep esoteric level. And I'm wondering, for you, does it change the way you relate to him? Does it change your perception of him and maybe some of the things like some of the things like that he carried in the film and sort of the emotional, the relationship with his father and all that? Does it change the way you understand that?
Uh, well, your question is it's a bit particular because it's a question about how I relate in my real life with my father, which is
Sure.
that's a private subject, right?
Okay. I
That's a,
understand.
I like to say that I have many fathers. So I have Alejandro Jodorowsky, the public figure is my father, and that's the person, the persona, and the audience knows. Right? I also have Alejandro Jodorowsky, the everyday life father of my childhood, which is the same person, but not exactly the same person either, right?
Right.
And the Alejandro Jodorowsky, who is my father today, 92 years old practically, of a 58-year-old man, which is also the same person, but not exactly the same person because we all change with time. We all evolve. Let's say not change, but we all evolve. So we all have a father. You have a father. I have a father. Every human being has a father, even if that father is an absent figure or a deceased person before you were born. But you were made by a father and a mother. And by the way, I'm also the son of a mother.
Yes, of course.
And that's what builds us as human beings. And we're also the sons of the social environment in which we grew. We are the sons of our brothers, in a way, of our teachers in school or our friends. We are the sons of what we watch on TV, in a way. You see, that's what builds us. But in the relationship with a father for a man, for a male, is a complex thing. As for a female, but differently, right? It's a complex thing because you have to identify yourself and then disidentify yourself to be, you have to become yourself in
Sure.
life. That's the goal. That's one of the goals of life is understanding who you are and becoming who you are.
Right.
So yeah, every step of our relationship has changed us, each one individually, and necessarily changed our relationship for better and worse. We have had very good moments, great moments in life, and very hard ones. But I think it's not very different from any man with his father. He's a different. Let's say that he's a different person from the average
Sure.
persons, but that's a judgment because what do we know about average persons? Every human being is unique, every story is unique, and every story is unique for oneself, right? So every person who's listening to this podcast, or yourself, Jordan, your story is the center of your life,
Yes.
right?
It's true.
And in the passage of time, the relationships change, evolve. Your father becomes aware of things that he wasn't aware before. You become aware of things you weren't aware before. and the relationship evolves as how you deal with that new awareness every time. Now, it's true that to be more focused on the movie, for a long for a long time we had this like fun like saying, well, I can't be your father anymore because you've become symbolically and artistically have become my father. No, you have you're Jaime, right? And so yeah, and I must say also that the collaboration in this movie was a real collaboration of working together. Like he had a great respect for my work as an actor, and I really worship his work as a director. He's a great director. That I can say. I don't know. As a father, it's a complex story, but as a director, that's not private, and he's great because he really has a vision of the style and of what he wants to talk about and how he wants to talk about it. So when as an actor you're directed in a very precise way, it doesn't take away freedom from you. On the contrary, it gives you a complete world, a style. So if you understand this world, you can improvise in that world, and you can bring your craft to try to improve that and your character in the movie.
Yeah, that's beautifully said. And in no way did I want you to feel like I was, prying for the sake of prying, but I was just fascinated as it relates to the film, just because
Oh, I understand that, and I perfectly
yeah,
understand that. It's a legitimate curiosity because it's a curious object, right? Making your son playing your father, and it's
yeah,
curious. It's curious, absolutely.
for sure. And yeah, I wanted to talk to you about, but beautiful, profoundly beautiful, both films. And obviously, of course, you are awesome in. I mean, even the brief appearances that are in, whether it's Santa Sangre or El Topo, like you are the son
Mm,
in El Topo, and I
mm.
love that film. First time I watched it was maybe when I was 15 years old, and it's fascinating for me to think about like the whole creative journey that you've had, and revisiting your work, kind of scouring the internet for English language interviews with you, and kind of wrapping my mind around what we should speak about, um, is fascinating. It's fascinating to kind of experience all of that. But I wanted to ask you also, the Fantastic Beasts film and your work in that, to me, is so exciting because what amazing spiritual karma, like to sort of be this alchemist Nicholas Flamel, who is, even in the Harry Potter universe, is sort of like he's like omnipotent character. He's always sort of lurking in the story, the Sorcerer's Stone, and all of this, the mythology. And for you to be Nicholas Flamel in the Fantastic Beasts film, that casting person deserves some kind of award because that's just a genius piece of casting, and you're brilliant in it. What was the
Why?
process?
Because where I come from, you mean, like
Is brilliant. Yeah, exactly.
from a family story? It has
Yeah,
nothing to do with that.
sure.
That's the incredible thing of life, right? A life makes random choices that suddenly make sense, and that's because the I think the main occupation of our human brain is to give sense to things that don't have any sense,
Right.
right?
Right.
It was more simple. They weren't looking for me at the beginning, and so it's a French character in the movie. So the casting Fiona Wire asked a French casting director to scout for an actor able to play that part. So they first looked for aged actors, in fact, aged French actors. They couldn't really find someone who you know, would fit for with their taste. And when they did found someone or someone, um, well, all French actors apparently don't speak English enough to
Wow.
be able to be in an English speaking production. So Elodie Demey, who is casting director in France, who goes a lot to theater, and knew me, she appreciates me as an actor in theater and all that. So she had this idea of calling me to do the casting. She didn't tell me what the casting was about. She gave me a scene that is not in the movie,
Wow.
and I learned the scene. I just had a feeling. Again, I read it. Really, I read it as an actor. I tried to take from the scene what was written there, which in fact was a very different version of the first scene of Nicolas Flamel in the Fantastic Beasts, Crimes of Grindelwald. So there were little, I don't know, things that I could pick there. So, oh, this is kind of funny character. Okay, so I prepared myself. I did the casting, and she said, okay, fine. I did it like I felt. I had no indications, no makeup, obviously. And 2 weeks later, I got a call. You have a callback. You have to go to London for the callback. So I said, okay, so what is it? And I said, because I had to sign that paper when I did the casting,
Wow.
s declaring how do you say it? A confidentiality agreement, confidentiality agreement,
Yeah.
where I couldn't say that I had passed a casting for I don't know what movie.
Wow.
So it's really weird. And so I went to London and I waited for 10 minutes there. David Yates, the director of the movie, came in, very kind gentleman, and he told me that he really liked the casting I did in Paris, and he would be very happy if I accepted to do the part, to play the part. I didn't have to redo any casting. I said, "Well, I'm so glad, absolutely, you know."
Yeah.
So that's how it was a casting. Now afterwards, and I don't think that really David Yates knows really much about my father. In fact,
Yeah.
now they're in total different universes, and he has been practically nonstop busy with the Wizarding World movies since Harry Potter 4, 5,
Yeah.
right? It's been a non-stop, right? Plus he made a Tarzan too, so I don't know.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it was random, but kind of fitted well, right? But it wasn't on purpose. It's, oh, the son of Jodorowsky. It had nothing to do.
Yeah. That's
But
that's
it had to do with
amazing.
that casting. You go, you do your casting, you learn your lines because you can be whoever you are. If you don't learn your lines for the casting, you don't prepare it well, and you don't give the performance that is, you don't get the part. And
Sure.
that's how it is. And it's funny because recently, obviously, Dance of Reality, I had people were kind enough to notice my acting and all that. But recently, the parts I've been asked the most about is a very small part because my part of Nicolas Flamel is an important part, but it's a very small part in the movie,
Sure.
and it's Paul Atreides in Dune, the movie that I didn't make. The project was helped my father, uh, and have like crazy interviews in cinema magazines in France about Paul
Wow.
and my experience in preparing that movie.
Wow.
So it's funny. That's how cinema is.
That must be surreal for a film that was never made, right? I mean, to be asked about it
Yeah,
is
it's fun, but it kept me busy for 2 years and a half, right?
um
With the training and all that. So,
wow. So that was
so
more
it's
what they wanted to know about the training and everything.
well, yeah, they can't know much about the rest because the rest
It's
didn't exist, right? It's
that's
how I
true.
prepared for the part,
Yeah.
and some trivia, some things you can tell, but it's
Yeah,
another subject, whatever.
for sure. But I think that's fascinating. And in no way did I mean that as like I don't mean to bring up the idea of like, oh, how great because, Brontis is related to Alejandro, that it's such a great casting. I just mean like, I mean, after seeing the performance in Dance of Reality and that kind of film, and then
Yeah.
casting that person, as Nicolas Flamel, I think is brilliant.
Well, that's really I have to say, it's thanks to Elodie Domé, for the
Wow.
casting director in France, that she had the idea. I'm just giving it, she said, "Oh, let's try with Brontes." I mean, you should interview her to see what really, why. I never asked her how come.
Right.
So the only thing she told me is that, well, we've been casting aged actors because Nicolas Flamel is supposed to be 600 and something, and very old guy,
Wow.
and well, they couldn't find an aged actor who would you know be good for the part. And also, she knew I came from theater, and in theater, you have much more the occasion to transform yourself. And obviously, even with an aged actor, they would have had to age him even more,
Yeah.
right? So the movie needed also an actor who was capable to play with a mask
Right.
because it's half a kilo of prosthetics in the face, and so how do you play with that? It changes your. It's based on your face. It's made on you, but you have to have the good measure of over expressing yourself underneath so that something comes out of the thickness of the prosthetics, right?
Wow.
But not
Wow.
overdo it. So, For me, it was a very, very interesting experience, and I was very happy to be in a mainstream movie, a huge production like that one, because I could see that at least the movie I was in was really made with the same quality of attention and passion than Dance of Reality. That was an art movie, it's a very small budget movie. All the art department in Fantastic Beasts is great. The director is passionate about his movie. The actors are committed and they do it as well as they can. Really, it was a very, very nice experience with them.
That's awesome, and that I love that film. I think you're
Mm.
perfect in it, and that's really interesting about the prosthetic and sort of knowing how to emote with your face, but not overdoing it, as you say, and sort of doing it just enough where you can see it through the prosthetic. That's
Yeah, it's
fascinating.
never easy. And I had fun doing that because even if it's a small part, you can be creative in a small part, right? The thing is always being creative,
Yeah.
and that's the link between Dance and Reality and Fantastic Beasts, Crimes of Grindelwald is something I did learn with my father. There's in Dance of Reality, there's a scene just after Jaime goes and give water to all the poor people that are on the beach, parked on the beach because there's some sort of plague. He gets contaminated, right? And so and then he gets back home. So there's a little scene, a little sequence that you need in the movie to explain how he goes from the beach to his shop, his house, right? The shopping house. So he's walking in the street going towards his family. So my father told me there can't be a scene where nothing happens. It's not possible. Like, I don't want a scene like in so many movies and so many series. You see someone open a door, walk in the corridor, and enter another door, and just need that movie to link the story, but nothing's happening. There's a guy walking in a corridor. I don't want a scene with you just walking on the street from one point to another. We have to do something with this. So we'll look what to do, and then I improvise with his direction. This moment when he's walking, like feeling bad, and there's this poster of the dictator, and then he rips the poster like full of rage, you know? And then he goes out. So something happens in that scene. So there was a moment in Fantastic Beasts where after saying hi to Kowalski and having this handshake, that I improvised that moment too. I give my hand to he was says, "Oh no, Nicolas Flamel. Oh, Jacob Kowalski." So I improvised a little ouch, like
Wow.
because this guy's been 600 years, like maybe 400 years just meditating. He's so old. He must be fragile, right?
Right.
So that made them all laugh. So we kept it. But there's this little moment when he goes from saying hello to Jacob Kowalski to this crystal ball where he can see what's going on in the cemetery. So I have this little movement, right? So I have to do something with it because I just don't want to have this stupid just going from one point to another. And in the script, it was written he shuffles to. I didn't understand that word. What's the meaning of that? So I say, okay, so that indicates that something's happening in this little walk. So I improvise this little walk where he goes. He walks super fast, but super slowly, but he moves super slowly.
Yeah, yeah.
So David was like really laughing a lot about that. I said, let's keep it. Let's keep this, mate. This is great, mate.
Wow. Those are
So
my
that's
two.
how maybe that's one movie feeds the other. One experience feeds the other, right? As an artist, every new role for me as an actor is also the son of the former roles I've played before, and each performance it's not to succeed anything; it's to learn something that will feed the process for the next role. That's how we actors we move on.
That's brilliant. And I'm so like I'm inspired by the fact that those two moments were improvisations because those are my two favorite moments of the character. Like the
Oh,
like
okay.
the hurting his hand and then the shuffling and the way you run and everything.
Mhm.
That's so good. It's
Mm.
inspiring. So then after the role in Fantastic Beasts, I know you've done some stuff like The Darkness, which is a 2016 film. I think that hit the festival circuit. I'm not sure if it's been
Yeah.
released. Um,
Yeah, no, the darkness is on Amazon Prime.
it's on Amazon Prime.
So
Okay.
it's very fun because, in fact, um, after the Dune project didn't um, uh, was stopped, I entered adolescence, so I started thinking of something else and acting and all that. And I was in school and whatever.
Sure.
For a moment, I wanted to be a veterinarian, an airplane pilot, and a psychologist for children,
Oh,
make some university studies and all that. Well, life brought me to be an actor again, and I was really passionate by theater. So I made about 20 years of theater career in France with great directors, great projects. Where with these directors, I learned a lot with them too, and with my colleague actors. And when I came back to doing movies, it was in 2011 with a Mexican director called Daniel Castro Cimbron, who offered me to do a movie. This is very fun. In the desert of San Luis Potosí. This movie is called Tau, Tau, and it's in Amazon Prime too now. And it's weird because like this return to the cinema, right, was in the exact same desert where I shot my scenes of El Topo when I was a kid.
wow.
And it's a guy who is alone in the desert. You know? So it was for me like life makes loops, right? Puts there's a harmony in life in a way, and if you want to listen. So that was really very very interesting. It was a Mexican movie that we shot in 3 weeks
Wow.
with excellent photography. And in this movie, this my character meets a Huichol sorcerer, you know, some sort of master of the desert, as the character of El Topo also meets these masters in the desert. So I found there's some resonances there that were very interesting. And after that movie, the director was very happy of the work we had together. So he offered me to. He had this idea of making a trilogy of 3 movies. So some years after that, we did the second one, who's The Darkness, Las Tinieblas, that is also on Amazon Prime. And the interesting thing about that project is that it was with the same main actor, same director, obviously, same art director, and same photographer, Diego Garcia, who's a great photographer who always worked with natural light. So with this 40, and the same producer, Carlos
Wow.
Cimbron from Varios Lobos. So it's like this little team does a second movie together. Very different movie, very different ambience, but at the same time has something in common, which is the same cooks. Let's say
Yeah.
it's different days, but same cooks. And we have the project to do the third movie that he's writing now. So each movie is about 5 or 6 years. There's a 5 or 6 years separation between the time you make the projects and all that. So I'm looking a lot forward to that. And I like very much the work we did in The Darkness. It's an ambience movie, and it was interesting. Like the character has the same name and it's the same team, but it's not at all the same story. But you have little references, little elements that link one movie with the other. So
Right.
yeah, that's what came during, after, before, or Dance of Reality. I don't remember very well. Since Crimes of Grindelwald, I think, yeah, I shot just one episode for a series, or a French series. I toured a lot. My play, the play we did with my father, The Gorilla. It's a play that I have performed in French. I have performed it in Spanish, in Buenos Aires and Santiago, in France, touring a lot, and a little bit in English too. So I've been working on that and preparing trying. I was trying to um, move forward to a tour with it in the USA, in English, and in Mexico in Spanish. But our little friend, the coronavirus, arrived with other political viruses also arrived in the world,
Yes.
and thank God we're starting to heal soon.
Yes.
So that process has been kind of stopped for now.
Wow. But I'm sure. I mean, I'm sure that's going to be amazing when it does tour inevitably in the U.S. because I've only been able to see clips on YouTube of the gorilla, but what I've seen,
Yeah,
you
it's
know,
a little extract, right? It's a little trailer
yeah,
for the French version.
yeah. But what I have
Yeah,
seen
yeah.
was astonishing, like the physicality and the makeup and the kind of like it was so cool. So I'd love to see that here.
Oh yeah, it's a great part. It's a one-man play, one-man performance, 1 hour, and it's about based on a Kafka story of a gorilla that becomes human, and so it questions what it is to be human, what it is, mainly what it is, the effort that is very often, most of the time, asked to us to become someone else to be accepted. And
Wow.
this starts when you're a baby, right? You have to adopt some sort of behaviors so that your parents smile at you, love you, care about you, you know. So
Wow.
it's a very deep process. And the metaphor is being an animal becoming a human being.
Wow.
So, in order to be accepted by society, it's a beautiful play. It's a really beautiful play. We started with this play in 2008,
Wow.
and with stops and the tours and all that, I've been performing it like practically for 10 years,
That's
more
amazing.
than 300 times, and I'm not tired of it. It's
That's
it's it's a
amazing.
great, yeah, yeah.
Those are always my favorite works of art, whether it be literature, whether it be filmmaking or music, like the art that kind of forces you to reflect on what it means to be human. Always my favorite. Whether it's Exterminating Angels, Louis Buñuel, whether it's surrealism with a still that kind of existential framework, like it's always my favorite. So that I have
Well,
to
I
say,
believe very deeply that to give a good performance, you have to, what I call, put your pound of flesh in it. Yeah, it has to be related in a way with you, with some intimate part of you. And it also implies that through the process, you are going to evolve as a human being. So you put yourself a stake in it, right?
yeah,
So that's why sometimes it happens in a career that you go into a project where you don't learn anything. You're just doing your job, in a way. And I don't think that acting or whatever art can be done just like a job. That's for me. What I say, it's worth for me. It may not be worth for everyone. It's valid for my way of seeing existence. But if if everything you do, mostly in arts, but maybe in life, maybe in this conversation, I hope that in a way your questions and the answers that I have to provide will also enlighten myself about my own process and what I take out of the movies. For example, it's the first time sincerely, it's the first time that I really clearly see the link between dance and reality and the crimes of Grindelwald with that little process, how to do something in a moment that normally is nothing, right? So that visually always something is happening.
yeah. That's
Maybe very
amazing.
obvious for many other actors. I don't know.
I don't know. I
Yeah.
think it was a great moment, regardless of who was doing it. But
Yeah.
I want to ask you then about since this Dune thing is something you're quite often asked about, and the preparation was so fierce. Jodorowsky's Dune is one of my favorite documentaries. What what was that whole kind of what was being in the orbit of that project at that young of an age and training that hard? Like, what do you think that did to your sense of discipline as an actor and just as a human being? Like, did that inform your aesthetic as an actor and artist?
It was great. It was really great. Now there's a little confusing moment in the documentary of Frank Pavich's documentary, Jodorowsky's Dune. But I don't know why my father says this. He says, I sacrificed my son, Maybe maybe somewhere he feels like sorry that I had to go through all that preparation and that the movie didn't become wasn't made. But in fact, I don't remember those 2 years or 2 years and a half. For me, they were very joyful. It's a great memory for me. I worked with Jean-Pierre Vigneault every day. We had martial arts lessons, and he was a great teacher. He was very fun. He managed to make all that training was very demanding. It was tiring. It was the body hurts. uh, you're sore, you have bruises, but he would always make it fun. Like if I failed to understand a movement, he would just laugh. And when I would succeed, he would just like congratulate and say, let's go forward. It was very playful. He was a great pedagogue. And when I did the more the intellectual work with Michel Dorassin, it was very interesting. It was never boring. It was never, because I had to do physical training and also mental training because Paul is supposed to be a super brain. So my father wanted me to work with a mentat, the the fan people of the readers of Dune understand what I'm saying.
Sure.
So he gave me like a crazy guy from how do you say in French we say un savant, a knower, someone who has knowledge, huge knowledge in different fields. This guy with his like hair like this, Michel Dolassa. He has big, long teeth, a bit yellow because of his excessive coffee drinking. But he was very interesting because he too made studying a really interesting thing. We would go from one point and study, like for example, let's say he says we're going to study the spoon, right? So from this object, like we would draw a spoon. So we would develop the drawing capacities and proportion, perspective. And he would also say, well, this spoon is made of metal. So where does this metal come from? So we'd study mines, geography, and history. Since when do we use spoons? So we go to Vikings, and he would always make it like this. Like we go from one object, one subject, and would just like open
Wow.
to many fields instead of just accumulating information, that you don't know how to articulate. So it was a great moment. It was very fun, and I was very proud that my father would choose me to play Paul, because it was a huge project. It was a lot was at stake there. So I took it very, very, very seriously, and I trained myself very, very seriously. Now the movie didn't happen. Um, my father maybe says, "Oh, I sacrificed my son because he feels somewhere guilty because I didn't play the part, and I don't know our lives would have been maybe different, maybe not better. I'm not sure. I'm not sure they would be better. Who knows?" Um, but I mean, he was mainly his project. I was when we finally didn't do the movie, I was more worried about his deception than mine, frankly. And what I really learned during that I kept from all those years of training was my body learned to learn. And that for an actor, for me, was really essential. So how to translate passions, emotions into your body, into physicality. That's why I couldn't do the gorilla as I do it now if I hadn't done all that training for Dune so many years before.
Right.
Again, one thing is drives to another, and so mainly my body learned to learn. That was very, very important. Later, when I went to theater, there was a show where a Greek tragedy where you had the chorus was a chorus of young girls. So I would play a messenger, the main parts, but I would also be in the chorus, and the chorus were like the young girls of Kalkis. So I had to totally erase from my body all the martial arts attitudes that I had that were printed in me. I had to wash that away and learn how to dance Asian style and Indian style dances, from
Wow.
inspired by the Bharatanatyam. So that's because of that training. You're able to find a physicality for maybe for every character. So that was very useful. That was very nice, and also the idea that a subject is not just a one railroad, but a subject it's like really like expands, like a cell, like an organism. Knowledge is an organism, and the most interesting thing is to articulate knowledge, not just to accumulate knowledge. So it was fun. It was great for me. It was a great moment in life.
That's amazing. What an amazing story. I mean, it's pretty surreal. One of the reasons that I started this particular platform was that having had some experience in the entertainment industry and music, my principal kind of trade is music,
Mm.
um, is that I really don't like the way that certain things are handled in terms of the priorities in the entertainment industry seem to be like putting ego and pride above even the ability to make money, or
Ego.
like ego is a big thing, right? I mean, I can imagine, I've certainly experienced it, and yeah, I wanted to start this because I wanted to talk about things that I felt the next generation of artists could take from and be possibly of some use to, right? So any words of wisdom. Is there anything that you could impart in your experience that would help this next generation of aspiring filmmakers, actors, actresses, whatever it may be?
Oh, that would be so pretentious of me, really. Every art is demanding and is hard. if you really want to be a real artist. It's very demanding, it's very hard, it's always demanding, and it's always hard. And I have this very good friend who's a dancer. He's 70 years old now. He goes on dancing, giving a dance. And he told me, as a dancer, my body always hurts since I was 10 when I started dance, and now every day my body hurts because dance hurts, right? And doesn't look like it at all. So you have to be ready. If you want to be an artist, you have to be a real artist. You have to be ready to have your body and soul that in a way hurts. Not as a painful thing, but like you must always be demanding to yourself, not to, and to go on through art for art. Art is not a goal. Art is a vehicle. It's a vehicle. Art. It's never a goal. If your goal is being famous, successful, rich, do something else.
I agree.
Or maybe you will be famous, successful, and rich, but will you be a total artist, a long-term artist? I don't know. I mean, for me, the most a great example of an artist will be Picasso, who all his life went on exploring art and changing his style, the blue period, the pink period, the cubism period, until he really found himself and he was able to do a work of art on a napkin in 5 minutes. But at the same time, he would use that just to pay a restaurant bill, but that he wouldn't expose that. You have some geniuses like that. For the rest of all mortals, you just have to go on and go on looking for yourself. It's the vehicle to understand who you are, and at the same time to understand the world. Art is just an eye opener. It's not the light; it's the eye opener. That I could say.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's just
I
beautiful.
don't know. I don't know. I'm trying to say something useful, but
No, no, it's
And also what I'm saying here is that's valid for me. Every artist has his own path, as
yeah,
every human being is unique. Every artist is unique.
yeah.
So don't look for success. That's the trap. No. And concerning the ego is good. An artist with no ego won't make it. He won't find himself. Ego is not a bad thing. There was this like, destroy your ego, get out of your ego, blah blah blah. That's just blah blah blah. Ego is necessary. It's part of our being. A person without ego is also, you can call that a person with no self-esteem. And you need self-esteem to move forward. You need to think that you can do something, and the thing is not to be dominated by that. Absolutely, like you have this in Asia. You have the Buddha is always, whether riding a tiger, whether sitting on a tiger's skin, but that's a symbol of the ego. Another myth, another fairy tale. Jesus, he enters in Jerusalem on a donkey, right, on an animal, which is he. So he's being carried by that's his ego too. You can tell it's a symbol of his ego. So you
Wow.
need the ego to move forward, to have the good ambition and the good vision, and to believe in yourself, and not listen to anybody who says, "Oh, you should do this, you should do that, blah blah blah. You should do it like this, you should do that," because everybody wants to bring you to conform you to what has already been done and already been known and already been explored. An artist, you have to be an explorer. And
Wow.
the only thing you can explore is the unknown, because all the rest you can just walk through it if it's just already in Google Maps. No, don't go there. It's no point.
Yeah. And the only reason I completely understand how it would seem like a pretentious question to ask, but the reason I ask it is because for you in particular, the work that you do is brilliant in my opinion, and also you are working within the system. Like you're working within you're part of a major franchise and you're doing brilliant revolutionary work in my opinion. So I really want people to hear from artists like yourself, how you can do that because it's rare.
Well, I'm in one movie of one franchise
Hey
for
man,
now. Yeah,
hey,
so
for
I'm
now.
not in the three. I haven't been invited up to now to be in chapter three. So we don't know. It can also be just a fan service, just making appear Nicolas Flamel. So, I don't know. I hope I'll go back because I had a great pleasure doing it, and I love acting. To be sincere, I love acting. So there or somewhere else, And you never know. It's nothing is giving forever either, right?
Yeah.
Nothing's giving forever. I might never do another movie ever in my life, uh, or maybe I will do a bunch of other movies. Or it's the life of an actor is you can't be only an actor. No, it's
Yeah.
you can be an artist, only an artist. That yes, but art has different forms, and you have to be able to explore different forms. I mean, I've staged. I've been stage director in 3 operas and a theater play. I draw. I'm exploring graphics now. I wrote a book that came out in Spain called Manual de Codicia that has nothing to do with art. It has to do with economy, but I try to do it in a fun way. But when you're an actor, you're always depending on someone else's desire. No? You have to be imagined in a part and cast in a part. That's a very special condition. And when someone tells me, "Oh, I'm thinking of being an actor," but I hesitate. What do you think? Should I go? I always say, stop. If you hesitate, if you're wondering, just don't do it. We're already too many, and it's a hard enough work,
Yeah.
because the instrument, the material of the work is you. It's your body. It's your soul. It's your psyche. That's what the guy who makes the spoon. Um, well, he works with a material that is not him. It's the metal, and he designs it. Some engineer made years of study to design this little thing,
Yeah.
but it's not him, right? When you're an actor, it's you. I mean, it's you're playing with the whole of yourself when you do it well. So it's very demanding. It's risky, and it's a real craft. That really demands life experience, education. So if ever you hesitate, go for something else. There's a lot of things to do in this world.
I agree with that sentiment. I think, well, I want to ask you, do you think it's necessary to have an ego, not just for all the reasons you mentioned as an artist, but like to cope with the entertainment industry and the nature of the instability of the entertainment industry?
I don't know. I don't know. So frankly, some questions you have to admit that you don't know because every path is different. We're all different persons. So we all have a different life experience, and you can't tell someone have an ego because if you don't have an ego, you won't go. Well, you have or you don't have. You have an ego that goes up here or here. You deal with it more more or less. Um, we always tend to try to have general opinions. Like if human beings we would function like recipes, but we don't. We
Right.
don't. Every general opinion you have about mankind is a mistake. Is a fraud. Like people say, women are like this, men are like this, Asians are like this, actors are like this. No, because no, every Asian, every actor is a different person.
Yeah.
There are things, some constants, things that more or less the same, but that's the beauty of mankind, and
Yeah.
that's the beauty of the universe. There's no two things that are equal, exactly the same.
Absolutely.
Even twins at the end have different characters,
Yeah.
right? So it's a trap of the mind trying to find general rules, and in art even more. In
Right.
art even more. You know, so you can't say believe in yourself, but sometimes you believe in yourself and it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have a huge ego, and maybe sometimes I know. I won't say in cinema, but in theater, I know a lot of actors who are really crappy actors that are very bad actors, and they make a whole career because they know how to relate with people and they're fun and people want them in their show, or I don't know, for whatever other reason, you know. So there's no rule there. There's no rule. It's
Yeah.
it's it's unfair. And it's unfair. Life is unfair. You have people who have great careers, and you say, "What the hell, this guy, and not this other one, who's so more gifted and passionate about what he's doing."
Yeah.
Right. So you have to accept that. You have to accept that. Right?
It comes with life. I
and
agree. I agree.
and not rely on just one, not sit on one branch. Like in French, we say, don't sit on just one branch of the tree, you know,
Mm.
because you never know. But if you have the love of art, if you feel like, say, like essentially inside of you, you are an artist, recognized, not recognized, actor, design, drawing, writing, painting, sculpting, right? It's always about a form of research, And if you go back to alchemy, it's a way of transforming yourself into a raw material, into the best of you.
Beautiful. Yeah, I think that's true, and it's something unfortunately that's forgotten in the arts. Unfortunately, it seems to be, more predicated on, that the career path seems to be more predicated on, oh, if you do this, you'll make this amount of money, and you'll be happy, and you live in a mansion, and you'll have all these things.
Yeah,
And
but there's some sort of confusion, if I may, in your vocabulary, and that because that's how it is in English, I suppose, in the USA mostly also. You
yeah,
confuse, not you don't confuse, but you mix career and art,
hmm,
and it's not the same thing. When in my vocabulary, it's not the same thing. You can have an artistic career, but you can have a career that is not artistic in the arts field. You see,
yeah,
that's what I was saying. Uh, I mean, if the goal of an artist is success, well, I wish you well.
right,
You might lose art on the way. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. You have great actors or great directors, great painters that have success and they are still artists, and some who just become a merchandising brand. Jeff Koons, Jeff Koons, is Jeff Koons an artist? There's a huge debate about it in France. He doesn't make the art pieces himself, he just has the idea. He corresponds to a moment, right? So that question is a bit more our society and what really the word art means.
yeah,
Okay, so if the goal is success, that's a different thing that you can also achieve through art, but something achieve it without art, just being commercial.
right,
Because in USA you talk about the industry, right? It's the art industry. It's like almost two words that don't function together, but they've been like
yeah,
solidly put together, right? The art industry. That's entertainment. That's different. Entertainment is great. It's really great. I mean, I enjoy it. I watch a lot of movies. I watch a lot of series, and I love that. And read a lot of books too. Yeah. But but it's the sense entertainment is one thing. Art is that for me. It's two different words.
yeah,
And do I want to succeed in entertainment? Sure, I want to. Sure. Would I always try to do it honoring my love for art and poetry? Sure, absolutely, absolutely. Will I obey to a director who tells me don't be so interior, be just say the lines? And sure, I will do it absolutely, because it's also an experiment. How do you disappear totally in just like being there, putting your face and say the lines? There's a treasure to find there too. It's a question. Art is a question of attitude. It's your attitude. It's your interior honesty. That's what art is. The rest is work, entertainment, and business, and all that.
that's a,
But movies have always been a business, since the beginning.
yeah,
Since the beginning, one of the huge successes in the beginning of the movies industry, there was this guy who filmed. It's a dog movie. I don't remember the title. It's very old. It's a silent movie where there's a nurse that has a romantic meeting in a park with some guy, and another guy takes the baby, out of the carriage and steals the baby, and you have the dog that saves the baby. It's 20 minute thing, and this guy, his idea to film that, he filmed that with his friends, some friends he had, and he started showing that around USA, like in very like poor, and maybe he just put a blanket and project that. He became a millionaire with that, and the copy was so wasted of showing it. The negative of making copies of it was so wasted. He had to reshoot the movie to go on with his business, And he did that 2 times. She shot the movie 3 times, exactly the same thing with the dog, his dog that saves the baby. But it's a huge. But the guy become a millionaire with that. Was it art? No. Was it a success? Yeah.
Right.
That's how movies started. That's the industry of the movie started like that. You know that the first ones who conceived that movies could be art and could be entertainment were women. Whether when big in the beginning it was movies like when the Frères Lumière did that and all that. It was just some sort of Luna Park attraction, right? The entering of the train. But the first ones who thought that that could be a storytelling media were women directors. That and that became a success. They started making money with it, and so since they started making money with it, men took over. And in the history of movies, until very recently, all the beginning of cinema and the woman's part in the industry, were erased. You know. And,
Wow.
uh, so it's very interesting, no? Also
That's
to know that in our days,
wow.
right?
That's surreal. I mean,
Right.
it makes perfect sense to me, but it's
Yeah.
tragic that
Yeah.
was, you know.
Well, that's how it is. Huh? That's how it is. Huh?
Yeah.
That's how it is. It's good to know. We're in moments when we start to remember
Right.
and clean all that.
Yeah. And I
I don't know
wanted.
why I talked about it. Just because some trivia that amuses me. That's it.
Yeah.
I find it interesting.
It's very interesting, and I think I apologize for the distinction of art and career and industry and all these terms. I think for me, because I've had recently an experience of like contending with the industry in a way where I'm under contract and sort of I was at this moment and realizing shortly after being under contract that all of the things that compelled me to study this craft of being a musician and writing songs, performing, all these things that compelled me and inspired me to excel at it were the opposite of what were required to be successful. And so I realized, it's like this moment where I realized, oh, okay, music and the music industry has nothing to do with selling music. It sells everything but music. So,
Like the food industry in the USA, right?
very true. Very true.
Sometimes it's not real food. It's just fillers.
It's mostly fillers. Mostly
Right.
fillers.
Well, maybe it's because
Yeah.
the goal in the USA, the main goal, the cultural main goal, and then what qualifies your success is the amount of money you make,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
A good movie is good because it made so many millions of dollars. My father says that, but I agree with him. When you have critics, and the first thing they tell you, made this cost this and is making this amount of money. Oh, um, Wonder Woman is great because it's made so much money, right?
Yeah.
Well, I watch superhero movies. I found that Super Wonder Woman was not very good, frankly, for my taste.
Right.
It's not really the one I prefer. So what's the big because it made so many $1 million with a female character? That just doesn't talks about cinema. That talks about our society.
Yes.
That it's an event that a movie with a female lead finds success, and so everybody's, oh wow, well that talks very badly about our society. This
Yes.
should be, I mean, shouldn't be an issue that it's a male or a female character,
Right.
because we only talk about that and we don't really talk about the quality of the movie, which is just not so good for me.
Right. Yeah, of
And I'm
course.
sure a bunch of fans of Wonder Woman are just gonna hate me now. But
Oh,
I mean, I don't know. In the superhero movies, I prefer Doctor Strange, but that's my taste, right?
such a great
Or
one.
how this director, I love this director who made a Thor Ragnarok. Take
Oh,
Taiki Wait
Taiki? Yeah.
Taiki, yeah. I
Yeah.
love that director. He made this super good movie, What We Do in the Dark, about the vampires. I don't know if you know that movie.
I've heard of it. I've never seen it. No.
Oh, you have to watch that.
I
Apparently, he
will.
has also a series. They made a series from that is great too. That's a great director, and he made Jojo Rabbit. So that's a guy. You see, that's a guy for me. Totally in the industry, in the mainstream industry, but he's developing his own vision, his own work. I love to work with that guy, for example. He's a,
Wow.
if in the industry, right? Like in this industrial cinema mode,
Sure.
he's very fun. So why were we saying this? Uh, because of the music, right? But concerning the ego, for example, in music, you have experiments that have been done with a lot of success, like a lot of industry success. Like it's a group like Daft Punk,
Sure.
which is one of the first, I think, that hit themselves. You don't know their face.
Right.
No, they have these robot masks, but it's an international huge success,
Right.
right? So inside and they did the music they liked. So inside of the industry, you can't deal with your ego and also find your own path and still have success. You know? It's a weird alchemy to go back to that reference. You
Yeah.
know? And it's a mysterious thing. It's really a mysterious thing. There's no rule. There's no rule at all.
That I think that's beautifully said because that is sort of the aspiration, not only for me but for I think the next generation of artists because I think people are starting to see like the sheen of the industry, at least in America, where all of this pop music is sort of being like forced at people. And I think with a situation like COVID, where suddenly people have a chance to step back and say, "Oh, maybe I don't want to listen to whoever it may be, Nicki Minaj or something. Maybe I want to like find something that's actually going to be moving and it's going to like help me get through a difficult time." So yeah, I think there is an opportunity to do as you say, to work in
We have two, if I may, we have two
yeah.
traps, right? One is, as you say, like what I know of mainstream music in USA now, it's hamburgers. I mean, it's fast food hamburgers. I mean, it's all the same. It's vocoder and same rhythms and the asses that move and the girls with big tits to sell and video
Yeah.
and the guys. They all sing the same way and do the same music. And it's practically made like this. It's conceived by. It's like the movies, right? Now, this comes from. I hope I don't lose the thread of my thinking because I want to tell you two things. But this is based on a reflex we have, a way of how we're structured mentally. We always try to be in a safe territory. It's a territorial question. Outside of my territory, I'm in danger. It's just linked with a very reptilian brain thing about survival instinct, right?
Yeah.
So the unknown is frightening. It's like the Little Red Hood story. No, her mother, don't get out of the way. You're going to grandma. Don't get out of the path because you will meet the wolf. But the whole interest of the story is to meet the wolf,
Right.
right? So if you're Little Red Hood and you stay in the path, nothing happens in your life. No. So, but we tend to want to always stay in the path because that's where we feel safe. You know that to evolve, to confront yourself with yourself, because the wolf is just our inner fears. It's a dark part of ourselves,
Right.
right? That's the only way to. That's why horror movies are so appreciated, because for young people, you learn to deal with fear in a safe place, which is a movie theater.
Right.
That's why all kids' stories, children's stories for children are always so terrible. And even if Disney adapted it to a very more softy thing, when you read the original Grimm Brothers or Anderson stories, they're terrible. There's mutilations and dyings and eyes taking off and bleedings. It's the ogre is going to eat you. I mean, it's always, but those stories psychologically help you to deal with fears, right? So the only way to widen your knowledge is to go to the unknown, is to go out of the territory. But the industry, to make us feel well and safe, will always offer us the same thing, and we go see once again the same movie, right? The path of the hero, this formula that all the studios use in different ways, very creative, different ways. But it's always the same story you're watching. You know, the one person against the world, which is a total myth. It's like the self-made man is a total myth that doesn't exist. I mean, any self-made man has being advantaged by the country where he was born, by the structures like the bridges and the roads that allow him to go to university, by the university that have been built by someone else, by the knowledge accumulated before him. I mean, Steve Jobs is not a self-made man with all that was done before. I mean, it's a famous rich guy who said this, right? If I was born in Calcutta, I would never been the self-made man I am now. We all benefit of the work of each other. That's the beauty of humanity. So the danger now is that we are like all the social media and all the data, big data, and all that. Our behaviors, our taste, everything's analyzed, right? So the industry has a very refined um, model of what we want, of our territory, where we're safe. So they will always offer us the same territory, the same music, the same kind of stories, and that we will go to them, we will buy them, and we'll go watch them because in this terrible world in which we live, worse every time, or maybe we're more aware that this the world is terrible because we can communicate and the news go faster now, also thanks to social media and all that, and news channels and all that. It's a very anxious world, very aggressive world, very divided world. Yeah, it's safe to listen to Kylie Minogue. It's safe to watch the Wonder Woman because that's where okay, we breathe, right?
Yeah.
So with all the algorithms now even all the social media offer us news and posts that we know things we like, so that we feel safer. But at the same time, it makes us more radical, more aggressive with which is different. When art is about opening yourself to difference, because you have to open yourself to another way of seeing things.
Right.
Art is open your eyes to another way of seeing things. That's what art is. I open your art, and through I open your eyes, and through your eyes I open your heart to a different way of seeing the same thing as you see. That's about it. So that's one danger. So and the other danger is that we comply to that and we lack of curiosity. It's also the audience's responsibility to be curious, right? Because for a long time I thought like you, that movies were all the same, just what I've been saying to you for the last 2 3 minutes. That it's always the same, and that art movies were over because there were no more producers. There's only financiers now that produce the movies, and that cinema as an art form was dead, and we would always see the same entertaining popcorn uh, buyer movie. But when with the Dance of Reality, I started to go to a lot of festivals, and I discovered that in the festivals, there's a lot. In fact, there's a lot of movies being produced by. You talk about generation, but in art, there's no generations. I mean, there's no age things. Some people who are 60 years old are younger than people who are 20, and like in the creative mode, right?
Sure.
So, but there is art. There is art movies, and they're not only art movies, which sounds like very selective for a select audience. But there are other kinds of movies, other kinds of stories, other kinds of storytelling, other countries. I mean, Korean cinema is it's incredible, and African movies exist, and Latin Americans it's in full development, and they talk about completely different issues that the UK industry or the Russian movies. So there is. So we have to be curious. We have to look for all that as an audience, so that because it's there. It's not true that it's not. It's there. The only problem is the distribution. Distributors are the one to make you believe that there's only one kind of movies and only one kind of food and only one kind of music. It's the distribution industry. The industry is the distributors.
Right.
That's the problem. Because distributors of movies and distributors of food, fast food, and all that, they despise the audience. They're talking to it. They don't love you. They despise you. They think that you only deserve shit because that's what you like, eating garbage,
Right.
watching garbage, right? Now, entertainment, from time to time, a good hamburger, frankly, I love it. I
Sure.
really enjoy it. From time to time, don't only feed me with hamburgers. It's bad for my health.
Right.
Entertainment movies, superhero movies, I love that. Great crime series, I love that, really. But I don't want only to see superhero movies.
Right.
You see, that's the thing. So as an individual, we're free as an audience.
Yeah.
So let's be aware that we're being served only hamburgers or mostly hamburgers. So we have heavy metal hamburgers, pop hamburgers, uh, electro hamburgers, you know, rap hamburgers, but it's always hamburgers. But there's also refined cuisine, and refined cuisine is good for everybody.
Absolutely.
You just have to go to another place. We have to be able, as an audience, to go to put ourselves in a different place, in an uncomfortable place, in somewhere where we feel we don't know and we will be in danger. But there's not real danger, right?
Right.
Right? Um, let's say that politically I would be more a liberal, right?
Right.
But I like to read some conservative books because I like to rub myself to another perspective. If
Yeah.
I only listen to my own voice, you know, we end into some sort of masturbation system where you're only feeding yourself with yourself. And you're being fed by the industry. You're being fed yourself. The industry, in a way, makes you become your own cannibal. You're
Right.
eating yourself, and at the end, there's nothing. That's just void. See?
I think that's a really
I'm
powerful
sorry, but I'm
message.
sorry about the
No,
sermon.
I love your sermons. I think that's a really powerful message to send to fans of art. Like, you have more power than you realize because,
Absolutely.
yeah, if you were to go investigate and see interesting art house independent film, there would be more of a market for films like that in the future. That would be more of a normal part of American cinema if you were to go and seek it out. So I think, as you say, that is a really profound kind of way to frame that conversation, the meeting, the balance between commerce and art, and all of these things that we've been talking about.
But I think it's something that's more general, and I don't believe that I'm saying something specifically new or whatever. I think that I'm totally in my time because let's say like politically, I think that people are noticing that the limits of the representative democracy, in a way, when democracy consists only on going voting every 4, 5, 7 years, and that's it, and then you don't do anything. And the more it goes, I think that recently we're seeing that people are engaging themselves much more uh, in their world.
Yeah.
This huge beautiful movement of the young people, who every Friday before the COVID, every Friday would stop going to school and would just like go and march,
Right.
saying, "What the hell are you adults doing with the environment?
Right.
Something has to be done." And the more it goes, I think the more citizens will say, "Yes, we need a form of representation because we can't be all the time, dealing with everything."
Right.
And yes, governing is complex because I don't believe in like you have to do this, you have to do that. I mean, it's more governing is complex if you really think about it. You have to take into account different views, different needs, different perspectives, and you don't change a society just like
Right.
this, right? But as we're talking about the audience engaging themselves and looking into something different, I do think that citizenships is becoming or will become something different.
Right.
You have the COVID interrupted a lot of very strong social movements, social
Yes.
protests, but there were protests that were not specifically against. There were some against, but there was a lot of protest for something, for another way of being, for another way of dealing with the world, for another way of behaving with nature. And it's we just had an interruption because of the pandemic, you know, which
Yeah.
arrived very. It was a good opportunity for all the people who don't want things to evolve. But once the pandemic is over, I think all this will go on, especially because there is a generation of younger people who already see, well, I'm going to take my part in all this.
Yeah.
Not necessarily politically, it can be poetically, it can be artistically, it can be in my community, you know. But the good thing, if we talk a little bit about the COVID and all that, the good thing it could be that makes us realize that we're one humanity in one planet. And the COVID doesn't care about frontiers, races, sex, political orientations, or whatever. And it's everywhere in the world, and it's the same for everybody. So I hope that this at least gives some sense of, yeah, we need identity, because that builds us as a human, as a person. But we're not only our identity; we're also a common body, a common human race,
Right.
a species, and we have a responsibility towards this little planet and towards ourselves. We can't. I always believe that this movements that started some years ago of countries isolating themselves and working only for themselves and nationalism and all that was some sort of last of 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 a backward movement, like a reaction to some sort of really profound psychological change in humanity and in society, of people wanting to more solidarity and to more consciousness, more awareness of the planet and of the ensemble that we are. I like to. This is one thing I like to do, and maybe I don't want it to be too long. I'm sorry,
No.
but if you close your eyes for 5 minutes and you just visualize yourself in the room in which you are, and then you try to visualize yourself in the room in which you are, in the home where you are, in the place, the house or the apartment in which you are, and then you try to visualize the building or the block, and then you go on like this, trying to visualize your city. We can do that because we have images that we have seen maps, so now our imagination is able to do that. Then you visualize your country, right? It's very kind of difficult just have this visualization of your country, and then you visualize the planet, right? Just have the feeling of visualizing yourself in your chair, on your chair, in your room, in your home, in your city, in your neighborhood, and in your country, in the planet. And then you try to move backwards, like a zoom back movement, right? And then you look at your solar system, and you're there in the solar system, and your solar system is in a galaxy, and this galaxy is among thousands and millions of galaxies in an immense universe. So when you try really to, it takes like 10 minutes, let's say 5-10 minutes. It's a game, it's a relaxation game.
Sure.
And you visualize that, and then you understand how frontiers, identities, nationalisms, and all that is absurd in the cosmos.
Right.
We're smaller than the head of a pin in
Yeah.
this universe. If you believe it's a creation of God, of a God, or if you believe it's not, it's the same thing. We're just a little dust. And there we are on that little dust, millions of people fighting each other, competing with each other. So maybe this COVID virus is some sort of message, a messenger. It's a messenger saying, hey guys, get your shit together. Work it together. We won't solve this COVID issue if the whole planets, all the countries don't agree in a way of doing it. Look at the
Yeah.
craziness with the vaccine now. I mean, countries fighting against each other to get the vaccine, to get
Yeah.
more vaccines than the others, right? All the industrial countries who got the vaccines, they left none for Africa. Well, that's so stupid because with the planes that they're traveling, if not everybody is taken care of, vaccine or otherwise, uh, it's just going to come back like the plague. The plague started in the year 500 something, and it ended in 1920 something.
Wow.
Yeah, we don't realize that. We've been dealing with pandemics forever.
Yeah.
20th century, we had SARS, we had a so-called Spanish flu, we had AIDS. It's been all the time we've been dealing with this, right? And this one is everywhere. So this one says, guys, if you don't work together, if you don't unite, this is just going to go on.
Right.
We're going to go on with discussing about the mask, not the mask, going out, not going out, being close to our friends, being able to, hug your father, hug your mother, your brother, your sister, your girlfriend, your boyfriend. That would be for me the good thing about this COVID, if there is
Yeah.
something good, even if
Absolutely.
I'm as fed up as everybody with it.
Sure. But I think you're
Yeah,
right. I think it is going to be an impetus for more self-reflection and introspection about what are my priorities. What what is really important? Is it making this amount of money when I don't spend any time with my family? Or is it, being this successful and living in this house when I barely have time to myself? Like all these things. And also just the equilibrium of seeing that celebrities, people that society and culture, particularly in the U.S., I can only really speak to my experience in witnessing this in the U.S., but seeing how people would look up to A-list stars, and suddenly with COVID, it's like, maybe I don't really care what George Clooney's up to these days. Like maybe I'm not really, you know what I mean? Like there's this sense of like maybe it's more important for me to just take care of my family and make sure that things are like, I have enough money to eat and to feed my family and to pay rent and all these things. So I've noticed that it seems like some art has been heightened because of this shared experience globally of, isolation, introspection, and all these things. And I hope that's the case anyway.
We'll see. Well,
Yeah.
don't be sad, but there's no more movie stars. The stars today are the series providers. What do you see when you're curious about the George Clooney movie because it's a George Clooney movie or because it's a Netflix movie?
Oh, you know what? I feel bad.
Nowadays the star is Netflix and the new Netflix movie, the new Netflix series. That's
Good point.
even that has changed.
Very good point. And I feel bad for picking on one particular actor. I think
And I like him, George Clooney.
I
He's
like
cool.
him. I have no problem with
Yeah,
it. But
absolutely, he's a cool actor.
yeah, and he seems like a nice guy. But I feel like that example, of having this idolatry in culture where you look up to celebrity and you worship at the altar of celebrity, and then suddenly this situation where like, oh, you know what? The grocery clerk is the hero. Like the person that's working on the front line in the medical industry, they're the ones who are now kind of put up on the pedestal as they should be. So I feel like that is a good recalibration. But all that you said is incredibly inspiring. I wanna ask you one more question, if you don't mind.
Okay.
This is just about kind of everything that we've covered with regard to art and culture and society, and you particularly, because I think you're such a fascinating and inspiring person in the arts. I want to know, what role do you think art can play in providing like lasting cultural change, whether that be because of the climate, any of these social issues, like the racist issues and the racism issues. Like, what do you see art's role as in helping heal those divides and changing culture?
Listen, art is not going to change the world. Art can change persons, can open persons. The practice of art as an artist or as an audience is something that would probably bring some compassion in the sense of I share your passion, I share your joy, I share your pain, I share your vision. But art is not going to change the world. Art has been here since humanity is here. How do we know about the first human beings? No, it's because we see their art in the caves, the hand, a buffalo or a cow, a horse. It's art are the signs of the presence of human beings prehistorically, right? So we are humans. We do art. We're the only ones to do that, right? So it's part of ourselves, but that's not going to improve or worsen the world, because if it would, we would know it, right? But it does makes us human. So a society without art, without storytelling, without something that opened our soul to other ways of seeing things, a world like that would be a dead world.
Right.
Right? We would just simply disappear as human beings, as mankind, as it's what we are. In fact, human beings are all artists. They just have forgotten it.
Right. Right. Well, I think it's a powerful thing to keep in mind. I think most people do forget, and that is, it's unfortunate because if they were to remember their power, not specifically in the arts, but as a creative individual, that some of these issues might not be so serious. You know, the climate issue, for example, if it were more dealt with a creative mindset and you know.
Listen, um, the climate issue has many issues. The question is, it's not art or no, not art.
Hmm.
The problem is greed.
Right.
That's
Well,
the problem of humanity. Nowadays, the problem of humanity is
right.
greed. Is greed.
Yeah, I agree.
That's the problem. That's the disease. That's the virus. That's the mortal virus of humanity. Greed, nothing else.
But if that is the mortal virus, which I agree with you, it is. I do think art has a role in transforming, like I say, the priorities and causing some level of introspection and maybe getting individuals who then then communicate that to other individuals and have this idea of like greed is not the moral greed is not the moral, transcendent heights of humanity,
Yeah.
right? It has to be
Sure,
something deeper.
sure.
Um, but yeah, I agree with you. I think that art on its own, no, or it can't have lasting, real or cultural change. But the people that cause that change can be inspired by the art.
Sure.
You know,
But let me tell you that you have, like, if we would be progressive or whatever, and we would think in this perspective, but you have very conservative people
sure,
that are in the history of art
yeah,
that were also great artists. So
right,
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I like what you say because it's what you say is still has hope,
right,
opens to hope, right?
yeah,
Um, let's say that unfortunately a little bit less. I have a little bit more disenchantment for now, today, at
sure,
this hour of the day, at this now. Maybe
yeah,
tomorrow I'll feel better, and I will
sure,
remember your words, and that will make me feel better. But but yeah, but yeah, where I agree with you is that it's a whole movement, right, of from different sources, different forms of energy and different sources. So the artistic one could be an eye opener. People who were really like really read about what's going on with food or with environment in a very technical way. Is also a path. It's
right,
also a way to go there. The thing is that, yeah, being aware of what's going on, and not build our opinions on opinion leaders, but on what we really really look for, right? And the
right,
sources we choose, whether they're art, whether they're documents or whatever, shows who we are also in a way,
yeah,
right? They reveal ourselves to ourselves. If my source of understanding the world is uh, trending Facebook or trending Twitter stuff
hmm,
that is not, that I don't check, that I don't look for, that I don't confirm. Okay. Well, that shows a little bit to yourself who you are. That's a choice you make. A lot of people choose ignorance, or a lot of people choose conspiracy or whatever because it's more fun.
right. More exciting,
It's
right?
easier and gives them some sort of sense of control,
Yes,
right? And that's a big problem, huh? That's a big problem. That's what they're selling to you, all these people.
yeah,
No, that you control. But no, you don't control. That's the beauty of life.
right.
The day
It
you
is
control
beautiful,
everything, you stop. You don't move anymore, because everything's under control.
right?
No. To be able to walk, okay, you must accept this moment with no balance. When your balance moves from one foot to another, your weight moves from one point to another, and there's how do you say, desequilibrio, unbalanced moment
Okay.
from one balanced position to another balanced position. There's an unbalanced moment. If you don't want any unbalanced movement, then you don't walk. Just stay still. But if you do the experiment just to stand still,
Right.
just to stand still, your body is all the time dealing to look for balance. The only moment where you're perfectly balanced is when you're dead. Even when you sleep, you don't stop moving.
It's
So
true. I I think
but
there's
people
hope
want
there.
that. People are going to panic of not having control of things. And
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's powerful to know that to not have control is a beautiful idea. Like
absolutely,
it's beautiful.
creation is that's where creation is. That's creativity is.
Yeah.
If you want to control everything, if you're a control freak, gee, you're gonna be a frightening person,
Yeah.
difficult person to live with, and not an artist because art is not in control. Art is, for me, is in structure, understanding that you have to build a structure that allows creativity,
Right.
but structure is not the creativity. It's it.
Right.
Let's say, like for example, a beautiful cup is not the wine,
Wow.
right? But you need the wine, you need the cup so that wine has a form and you can drink it,
Wow.
right?
That's beautiful.
But
Yeah.
but the creativity is the wine. But if you don't have a cup, how are you going to drink the wine? You know, or a bottle of a tunnel, whatever you can drink from, whatever you want,
Sure.
or a barrel. You can drink wine from a barrel if you
From a
want, but
barrel.
it's still a form.
Yeah.
So you have to learn your craft. You have to develop your instrument. It's like the flute is not Mozart's music, but without the flute, you can't hear Mozart's music.
Wow.
Yeah? And even the notes that Mozart wrote, on the page, that's not the music. That's the notes. The music is the soul of Mozart through sound getting to your soul.
Yeah. It's what you hear, right? It's the actual.
It's the actual thing,
Yes.
right? But you need a form.
Yes.
You do need to work your craft. You do need to develop your abilities, but not to confuse your abilities with the art. So
Wow.
that's where unbalance comes. You
Yeah.
can't be unbalanced. I'm not saying that you have to be unbalanced all the time. If you listen to me well, when you stand still, your body is always dealing towards balance. It's just looking for balance
Right.
all the time. If you think that art is being just unbalanced, then you're just crazy. Then you're just like whatever, and whatever is not art either,
Right.
right?
Wow.
I
I
mean,
think.
Picasso knew how to paint a very realistic spoon. He could make very realistic portraits. That's why he could make the other ones.
Right. That
So,
concept of the form, needing the form to express the art, is beautiful. What a beautiful allegory for, it could be in music, it could be an instrument, or, since the canvas in film as an actor is your body, it could be you. Like, I think that's not you specifically. I'm just saying you, the actor. But I think that's a beautiful idea, and I think that's a good place to end this conversation. And I have to say, thank you again for your time. This has been one of the most profound conversations that I've ever had, and
well, it's just your second show, right?
just my second show, but ever had even outside the podcast, not just the
I,
podcast.
I'm joking.
But if you were interested, I would love to have you back, and if not, that's totally fine. Thank you for your time. It was an amazing conversation.
Thank you.